That's right. That's why I hate the whole, get punched in the mouth and get up and get punched again, right? It's like, no, that's not. It's also why I hate the term no pain, no gain.
Hello and welcome to episode 199 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. It's Saturday the 6th of January. Happy New Year. How's your 2024 so far? I hope you're well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm a 3-time CMO and trusted marketing advisor. And in this weekly podcast, I aim to share the marketing street knowledge that I hope will inspire your inner rockstar with the help of chums I've met on my journey from sysadmin to CMO. Come say hello. You can find links to me and my guests in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com or on LinkedIn at rockstarcmo. And the show is brought to you by the Marketing Podcast Network. After the excitement of last week's compilation show, it's back to a simpler format with my regular guests. First, Jeff and I kick off the new year with our 5 effing marketing fundamentals, now available as an ebook. And I then join Robert in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar, who shares a fantastic cocktail and his word for 2024. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
On to our first segment, the Rockstar CMO studio with Jeff Clark, our resident strategy advisor, former Forrester research director. And this week, we are back to our 5 effing marketing fundamentals.
Happy New Year for 2024.
Thank you, buddy. How was your trip for the holidays?
It was great. It's like, the past couple of years we have been flying to Norway for the holidays, and this time we went to the beaches of South Carolina. So it was very different. Needless to say, there was no snow, and there was a lot of sunshine, and we were walking on the beach in 65-degree Fahrenheit weather. So it was great holiday break, and back and ready to roll.
Excellent.
How
Sounds
about yourself?
Fabulous. Yeah, we've had a lot of wind and rain, and so neither the lovely snow that you would have had if you'd gone to the Nordics, nor the sunshine that you had going to the Carolinas. So we were stuck in the middle with the misery. What did you come back to? What's the weather in Massachusetts like at the moment? You got snow?
Cold. We may have our first snow coming up this weekend.
Cool. Is it cold and crisp?
Serious. Cold and crisp, yes.
And bright, yeah. I like the cold, crisp, bright. I'd rather that than the miserable grey we've had all day today. But then, I don't know, I think the listener might be a bit bored of hearing me moan about the miserable grey here, because everybody knows what the UK weather's like. So anyway, let's get on to the topic. We're sort of kicking off the new year, and I kind of kicked it off a little. Well, I ended the old year, didn't I, last time with a compilation episode. And this year we're sort of kicking off the new year, and what we thought we'd do is give our 5 effing marketing fundamentals another little run around, because we've also published them as what the rest of the world calls an ebook, but I call it a long play, or we call it a long play, which I like that you wanted me to describe that as an EP. I don't know whether the cool kids know what an EP is.
I guess it's a bit dated. Yeah.
Well, I don't think anybody knows that LP stands for long play either. So
yeah, really.
so the whole play on words thing doesn't work. But as you say, it's 5 great tunes.
It is not a one-hit wonder, I'll tell you that much. It's a 5-hit wonder.
Yeah. So we've published that as a little flip book on the website, and you can find that at rockstarcmo.com/5, which keeps it easy, or there's actually a link to it on the homepage as well. So shamelessly plugging our own thing. Oh, and by the way, it's ungated, so help yourself.
Help yourself.
Yeah,
and send donations if if you feel guilty for the value that you're getting for nothing.
Well, you can sign up to our newsletter. There is a form, and it's not really a form. It's just sticking your email address if you want to be kept in touch with what we get up to here. But it's an ungated asset called the 5 effing fundamentals of marketing. It's not very long, but so it helps yourself to that. Anyway. So we thought we'd talk about our 5 FM marketing fundamentals today, kick off the new year, and promote our little ebook. And I think one of the things. So I'll get to you in terms of why these are important in a sec, Jeff. But I think the basic premise of the 5 FM fundamentals is that we don't think marketing has to be complicated. That it's built on these 5 essential elements that we cover. And those 5 fundamentals, as you can read in the ebook or in the LP, the long play, is the first one is the master plan. Then there's the knowledge, the story, the campaign, and the machine. And we'll go through each of those one at each time. As I usually say, I'm going to play the role of the lady that wanders around the ring with the ring number. I don't know what vision. I don't know. But I don't know what vision that sets up. So why don't we start, before we dive into the 5, let's start off with why are these fundamentals important, Jeff?
Well, I think, whether, you're building a team, whether it's a CMO or a marketing leader, in charge of a, significant part of the business, or you need to just perform a transformation. Things aren't going well, and you got to hit the reset button. Then you got to assess what's working well, what's not working well. And I think this gives you a way to focus not just on, oftentimes we're focused on the people. Do I have the right people in the right places? But we need to broaden the telescope out a little bit and say, processes, resources. We'll get into the machine, then you get into the technology. What are the elements that are really important? And again, like you said, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's keep it kind of simple. And I think when you focus on these simple 5, you put yourself in a better position for success.
Yeah. And the other thing about the ebook as well is we've kind of broken it down into these 5 effing fundamentals, and within each one of those, there's 5 steps or 5 things that you should consider. So we've really tried to break down. It doesn't try and explain everything. We try and do that on this podcast, and we'll try and support that with the blog and stuff as well. But that's basically the premise there. So. So I think that's great. So that's why they're important. I also think, Jeff, it's for anybody, right? Whether you're starting a new gig or whether you're just looking at what you've got going, there's something in there for anybody, everybody. Kind of marketer, I think. Yeah. Okay. So,
where do we start?
I thought you weren't going to ask.
What's number 1?
All right. So number 1 is the master plan. So the master plan is our business objectives and outcomes. So as we say, where are you going? How are you contributing to the business? Does anyone care about marketing at your company? Simply put, the master plan describes where the company aims to go, how marketing can help get you there, and how will you know if you've made it. What say you, Jeff?
So I think that the marketing team, has to understand, how the company is defining success, what's marketing's contribution to be to that. How are we going to track that? So this is all about, as we've discussed in previous shows, objectives and key results for marketing. And I think it's really important that that marketers, whether you're, doing the design work on the website, or you're, the campaign planner, or you're in, marketing ops, you kind of need to know what's the purpose. What are we all doing this for? Because sometimes you come in, and as you often say, marketing is not the coloring department anymore. Well, if we're not coloring, what are we doing? Are we generating opportunities in revenue? Or are we massaging customers and making sure they're having a good experience? What is it that is our purpose? And how are we going to measure that to know that we're working in the right direction and succeeding?
Right. Yeah. So this is about aligning our marketing objectives, our OKRs and all that kind of good stuff with the business objectives. So understanding business objectives and aligning against those. And as you know, I think I've said this several times on the show before. And when anybody ever asks me about what is the objective of marketing, I always talk about awareness, revenue and trust, although we don't really dive into it in the ebook, but I write about it plenty of other places. So my view is that marketing's role is to create art, to create awareness, revenue and trust. And although you talk to CEOs, they like the revenue bit and would like that to be first, but then the
I'll take care of the trust, buddy.
Yeah. So I think that's a good example of the sort of model that you need to align with what the business objectives are. So that's number one. So the master plan. So hang on, should I let you ask me then? What's number two?
What's number two? I thought you were the lady with the card saying, "Here we are." Ding, ding, ding. Round two starts.
Okay, so number two is the knowledge. So this is all the research and insights you need as a marketing team. So, and you took the words right out of my mouth there, Jeff. So today we all hope the marketing is not hired for its looks, but for its brains. You are no longer running the crayons and colouring in department. And as a former research director, I imagine this topic is close to your heart, Jeff. So what say you?
This is, and I think this is one area where I've seen CMOs, struggle, because sometimes the resources that create the insights they need might be in, another division of the company. So, maybe product marketing is in the product development organization, or the analysts that do the business planning and do all the number crunching. They're working under, some chief of strategy or something like that. And so it's like, do I have access to those resources? Are they helping me give the insights, or do I actually personally own those resources? And I become a resource to the rest of the company, because, it's hard to do, as we get further into the fundamentals, it's hard to do it properly unless you have an ideal customer profile, you have an analysis of the customer's needs.
Yeah.
You've got input from like win-loss or other competitive analysis to know, what customers are thinking, what's working, what's not working in terms of how the whole organization is going after revenue and opportunities. So this is, to me, this is a key input, and one that the CMO needs to wrestle to get the resources they need, whether it's within their reporting directly to them, or whether it's in another part of the organization.
Well, yeah, and I think that, as you mentioned there, this is where marketing can be a resource to the whole company, right? Is that it's not just marketing that needs its insight; it's the product guys, it's any of the sales decisions, commercial decisions you're making, right? So I think this is a great opportunity for us to build a capacity within the business that then that then builds trust of marketing within the rest of the business, right? As I was saying, we're not the colouring in department. It's not just about creative. It's about data. It's about coming up with that stuff. So I think that's spot on there, particularly understanding that ideal customer profile, because everybody needs to know who those people are, right? Whether you're in service, in sales, or in marketing, you need to know who those guys are. So, and I think as well, don't you think, Jeff, this is probably the thing we come back to most often when we talk about any marketing topic. It's always about understanding why and who for, right?
Yeah. And how can you build content? How can you run a campaign and know what's going to work? How can you, how do you know who you're trying to talk to in the market if you haven't done the research? It's too easy to make assumptions, or let sales tell you, or let the product team tell you. And it's like, well, if they've done the research, then fine. But if they haven't really done the research, then you're going to be missing your mark.
Well, each of these rabbit holes, I mean, like I was saying about the LP or the ebook, it's quite brief. So we haven't gone down each of these but this, I mean, there's so much here, Jeff, isn't there? I mean, when we actually write the book of the 5 effing marketing fundamentals, I think this will be a big chapter. So absolutely.
This is a whole warren of rabbit holes.
Which leads me on to, as you mentioned there, number 3, which is the story. So this is about brand and content marketing. So this fundamental is defining the story you want to tell. Your story starts with your brand, what attributes your company wants to be known for, and what people will say about you when you're not in the room, and dives into our differentiated point of view, consistently told in a language and relevance that engages the audience. What say you, Jeff?
Well, we've talked about storytelling And I know you've talked about it in the blogs and stuff many, many times. And you wrote the section for our ebook, so I'm going to let you give us the overview. And I think this is actually, it's interesting. A comment from one of our friends of our show, Grant Johnson, had made about CMOs going into new organizations that don't give brand its due. And so I think, this is where, you've got to sort of assess, does the company know what marketing can do for it if it really doesn't understand how important this is? Yeah,
that's true. And that's getting back to that colour and department comment again, isn't it? It's like, if you don't understand the capability of marketing to tell the story and the importance of the story and the importance of the brand attributes, and this is also not about channel or about tactic. This is about what is our story? What is it that we want to tell the world? How does our product help? All that kind of good stuff, right? I did write this. So the 5 points that were in the ebook, and when I keep downplaying it because it is just 5 paragraphs, it isn't 5 chapters. Is basically to know your why. So why is it you're doing it? Do the knowledge, the thing we just talked about just now. One of the things I think I encourage people to do when they're doing their content strategy and writing their stories is to be useful. So how am I helping that buyer? So that goes back to that point we were making about understanding customer needs. Understand why you. So why would somebody come to you for this information? What can you provide them that's different? And then the thing with content is you got to launch it like it's a product. So like this podcast or like a ebook that we're talking about, build it. People aren't going to come. You got to think about how you're going to market your story, how you're going to market your content, and that part of that content marketing. So they were the 5 things I put into that particular section.
So I think that the thing is, with our research in hand, hopefully we understand what the market, our prospects, our customers, the people that are influencing their decisions, what they think of us. And there is likely a gap between that and what reality is. Yeah. So, how do we tell the credible story of our value that brings the customer around to wanting to engage with us? Mm-hmm. And so, as I think one of the things we were talking about before we got on the show is just the importance of building stories into the way you talk about your organization, the way you talk about the value of the products, because people will understand stories better than they will lists of facts, figures, benefits, blah, features and stuff. And, most people get that, but they don't necessarily put that into practice. And it is, it's not an easy skill to apply to. I mean, we always tell stories about ourselves. I grew up in Illinois and how do you tell that about the organization and what it's providing and fill in that gap between their concept and their perception of you and what you really can do for them?
There's a ton we could talk about on this stuff, on all of it. All of this, absolutely agree. And I think as well, what you were talking about there about being credible is the story has to be credible. If you're a boring company, don't pretend. I don't mean boring. I mean, if you're a safe, risk-averse company, don't try and stick on a silly tie and be the cool kid in the room. But also, and I think that leads on to like the word of the year, I think in 2023, which is authentic, according to one of the one of the dictionaries that didn't say it was going to be Riz. But so, and I think we say authentic almost in every show. So I think that's that, isn't it? So that's nicely, actually, you referring to well, I mean, also I was talking about the tactics and stuff like that. And so that moves us nicely onto number 4, which is the campaign. So, and this is campaign planning and execution. And so the way that I think we frame this is marketing's job to be done. So this is the thing that most people would associate with doing marketing. The first 3 things are basically your homework and your prep and how, the inputs for how you're going to communicate, when you're going to communicate with your customers and prospects. And this is really when the rubber hits the road. So this is this is the part that, like I say, most people associate with marketing. It's our job to be done. What say you, Jeff? Because I know you've got a really good view about campaigns, and they're not these little things that you run on one channel. What's your definition? How do we move forward?
This was certainly a main mantra when I was working at serious decisions and Forrester and something that, you know, I reflect back on my career and when things worked versus when, you know, we were just on the hamster wheel. It was that if you really can focus your marketing execution in a small number, obviously this is relative to the size of the organization, small number of campaigns that are really focused on a specific set of customers and a unique set of needs, then you build efficiency and effectiveness into the way your marketing teams work. And clients that I worked with to help transition from, you know, kind of product-based campaigns to a more of a needs-based campaign is they get better results in terms of engagement and whatever the other OKRs are. They do less activity. So it's like you get more stuff, but with less activity. And it's like, well, who wouldn't want that? That's, you know, being efficient. And they also get better reporting because you can determine what the return of investment is at a campaign level, because it's very hard to do, you know, this, we've talked about this many times before. You can't do an ROI on a webinar, an email, the website. You know, it's like, it's that's down at too low a level to get something that's a meaningful return on investment. But when you roll it up into, you know, I'm just going to pull numbers. We have 3 campaigns. Those campaigns are focused on some combination of increasing brand awareness, perception, revenue generation, customer satisfaction. Okay, now I have a way that I can actually show marketing's impact on the business, which is very difficult to do at that tactical level.
Yeah, so I think the main message from this, really, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we talk about around campaign planning and execution, is the level at which you set a campaign and the fact that you should have a limited number going on, because your buyer isn't going to remember 17 different freaking ideas and campaigns. But if you really, like you say, go deep on 3, you're going to resonate and you're going to cut through and it's going to work. And you don't actually, because a lot of the work is in the planning and the ideation and the creativity stuff, isn't it? It's running the campaign is relatively less effort. So you get to reuse all of that effort.
And you have to tell a story overall.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you think about all the different types of tactics, it's like you got to tell the story over those tactics. It's like, how can you do that when you've got, 5 products with different launch schedules and different, and overlapping with your audiences? Yeah. It's just, it becomes impossible.
Yeah. And I always think that everything should ladder up and down, right? So, the individual campaign that you're running, as in, not campaign as in your terminology of campaign, I mean like an individual email campaign or something like that. Why are you doing it? The topic that you're doing should already be defined by, if you ladder up and look at the overall campaign, look at the customer needs and all that stuff, it just naturally falls out. You're not sort of scratching your head on Monday going, what should we email everybody about today? So you have it all set up. It's consistent. All right, cool. So talking about email and talking about technology there, and as usual, Jeff, we're running out of time. I'll move on to the 5th, which is the machine, which is...
I love this part, the machine.
The machine, which is our marketing operations enablement. Again, somewhere that I know that you and a number of the friends of the show have got strong feelings about. So how we define this: you need a marketing machine of the moving parts of people, process and technology and data to do the job, operationalize our fundamentals and execute the CMO vision. To maintain it, you need analytical tools and skills to answer questions about how your technology-enabled human machine is working. I'm not sure about that. A technology-enabled human machine. I needed data-driven in there somewhere, but yes.
Yeah, you did, yeah. Or AI, data-driven, technology-enabled human machine.
What say you, Jeff?
Well, it is. I mean, this is the the capabilities to execute the plan. I mean, you laid it out: people, process, data, technology, and one of the things that that I often working with a company is like, if you set up the goals, the OKRs at the beginning, then one of the things you should do is to say, okay, how are we positioned with these resources to actually execute on this goal, and is there a gap? Do we have the right people skills? Do we have the right process in place? Do we have the right technology? We've talked about doing tech assessments before. And do we have access and ability and the skills to leverage the data that's required to run the campaigns? And so for every goal, for every campaign, you should probably do a gap analysis to understand whether you've got what you need in place, and if not, then how do I fix that? And that becomes part of your plan as well. So as much as we say the campaigning is the big part of our work, well, getting the resources, people, process, skills, technology, or data and technology in place to execute is another big job that you usually hand over to the marketing ops team or the revenue ops team, and it's key to executing the vision.
Splendid. So there are our 5 fundamentals, which you can pick up at rockstarcmo.com/5, or find the link on our homepage, or I think there's another link which takes you to the long plays. Anyway, you'll find it. And those 5 fundamentals, as we just discussed them, are the master plan, the knowledge, the story, the campaign, and the machine, as you just heard from Jeff there. So, Jeff, those are our 5 effing fundamentals. We move, and we've done the weather, we've done the holidays. Next on our agenda is, what are we going to play out with?
I think we're playing out with The Creator Has a Master Plan by Brooklyn Funk Essentials. Brooklyn's where my daughter lives, by the way. 1994.
Yeah, I like that. Although we aren't the creator, but we do have a master plan, so I think that's fantastic. We'll play out with that. And will I see you in the studio next week, Jeff?
Absolutely.
All right, man. I'll see you then.
Sounds good. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
No, this is the sound of jazz roots and rhythm and blues that you just can't refuse. Brooklyn Funk Essentials, step on them. Don't bother worry, don't bother worry. Jaja the Creator, he my guide over with. Don't bother worry, don't bother worry. Jaja the Creator, he my guide over with. You see?
The Creator has a master plan.
Choo.
Listen, happiness for every man.
Wow, yeah.
The Creator has a work plan.
Don't you worry.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was The Creator Has a Master Plan by the Brooklyn Funk Essentials from 1994. And as I might have mentioned about a dozen times there, you can grab a copy of our 5 effing marketing fundamentals long play from our website. You can go to rockstarcmo.com/5, or there is a link on the homepage, and it's not gated. And if you grab it and like it, please let us know what you think. Right, it's that time of the week to wind down in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar and join the chief troublemaker at the Content Advisory, Robert Rose, for a cocktail and a marketing thought. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Welcome to the bar, and happy New Year. Happy
New Year, my friend.
Year, indeed. Yeah, we have a wonderful New Year cocktail. I mean, it's not really a New Year's Eve cocktail here in the bar, but nonetheless a wonderful one to have before you actually have to go back to work, which I'm finding is basically the entirety of this week, because nobody's back to work yet. So.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. But next week I suspect we'll open the floodgates, as it were. So it's a great one to have this weekend, and to sort of cap things off for a new year, start it off right. And it's and basically we call this a 25th hour. So I thought it might be nice, the 25th hour, as it were, of the last hour of the New Year holiday. And it's a wonderful drink. It's a little more complex than some of our other cocktails, but it starts with basically any one of your favorite single malt scotches will do. So 1 1/4 parts of that. So, if you like whatever single malt scotch you like, and it shouldn't be too peaty, basically. The less peaty, the better. And then you have a port, and this is going to add sweetness to it. So the recipe calls for what they call a late bottled vintage port, which basically just means a very young port. Because port's typically aged a little longer, but after it gets bottled. But I don't really love late bottled vintage ports because they're a little too sweet for me. So I go with the just regular port. So you go 3/4 or 3/4 of a part of that. So in other words, you've got 1 1/4 ounces of your favorite scotch, and then maybe 3/4 of an ounce of your favorite port, and then a little bit, another half part or half ounce of Nonino Amaro, which we've used many times on this show because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of, a dash, and I like 2 heavy dashes of Angostura bitters, and then garnish with a lemon twist. And this is you shake it all up and over ice, pour it over into a chilled, nice martini glass. Typically, it's got a beautiful color to it, very dark brown, almost amber in color. And it's a wonderful, it'll put you under the table for sure, but it's very intense flavor, but it's lovely to sort of cap off everything.
Start of the year as you mean to go on, under the table.
That's right. Exactly.
And what were you calling that, Robert?
It's a 25th hour. Yeah.
25th hour. I love it. And I don't think I've ever had a cocktail with port in it, so I'm keen to give this a go. I think that's fun. And when are you going to publish your book of cocktails? Because I think we've always talked about your other book. I think it's
in the back of my head. And if I can ever get the time to do it, yes. I do have a concept for the whole thing, but it's a bit of a labor of love would have to happen. And maybe I'll try and do it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that one. Well, we'll probably get onto what do we get. So where are we going to drink this lovely 25th hour then as the new year starts?
Well, I think, as we've been spending the holidays at home, it feels like we should both be at home for this, because it'll be the last one before we actually start traveling again.
Yeah.
And so it's enjoying one more week at home, sort of snuggled by a fire. Yes. It's raining outside. It's raining here in Southern California, and I know England being England, it's raining there.
Sure.
So basically, it's a good drink for by the fire, snuggling up for the last winter time, and then getting ready for next year.
I love it. And when the topic turns to marketing, as it so often does with us, Robert, what are we talking about this week?
Well, I thought I'd debut. So, one of the things that I do every year and have for the last 10 is to choose a word.
Yes.
For the year. Instead of making resolutions, instead of making sort of, I do intentional planning every year where I sort of write out my intentions for the year, like what I want to do. But those aren't necessarily resolutions. They're rather sort of just what I said, they're intentions, but they all then find themselves into one word, which I find very helpful, have for the last, as I say, decade. And, because this is the time of year for that, right? This is the time of year you dust off the gym membership card and you try and remember, all those diets, the keto, the Mediterranean, the paleo, the raw, whatever diet you're not going to do. And then, try and figure out what it is you're going to do, that basically fits all the food that you actually want to eat. But my word for 2024 is imagination. And interestingly, though, I have a specific lens through which I'm looking at that word. So I was trying to think of what my word would be for this year. And I was over the holidays trying to think, what am I want? And I had a whole list going, and I was thinking this and thinking that. None of it was really hitting. Then I watched one of my favorite movies in the entire world, which is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, nice.
Not any of the new ones, the classic, right? Yes. Gene Wilder,
absolutely.
And one of my favorite songs on the entire planet ever written. And in fact, as a musician, I think it may be the most beautiful song ever written, which is Imagination, Pure Imagination.
Yeah.
And the lyrics, when I heard Gene Wilder singing it, it was like, that's my word. And because it captures to me what imagination really means. So the lyrics, remember, are, if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Not want to change the world, there's nothing to it, which is a world of pure imagination. And basically, the way that I take that, the way that the lyrics say that, is that, we often define being imaginative as like, hey, thinking outside the box, or conjuring up some original story, or, thinking about a new product or something like that. And in that regard, imagination is something you do, right? It's an activity, and you're trying to create something. And basically the activity involves making the time or the headspace or whatever it is for imagining whatever that output is going to be. But the song, which I love so much, it basically assigns imagination a much deeper meaning. And what it does is that it sees the world, the entirety of the world, as your creation, no matter what it is. So it encourages you to go out and see the world around you as you want to see it. And then if you can do that in a productive way, well, then as it said, there's nothing you can't do to change it to make it all real. And so it fit perfectly for me because, as I've said on this show and on my show and others, I am not sad to see 2023 go away. Please go as fast as you can. And my word last year was balance, where I wanted to balance a lot more things, my work life, my business life, and, sort of all of that stuff. And the interesting thing is that as it came into this year, I think I got that. I got a lot more balance in my life. I did live up to that word, but what I didn't anticipate was that balance, in often cases, balance doesn't mean equality, right? Balance means you are literally balancing something, even if the weights on either side of it are completely unequal. And so while I achieved balance, I ended up unequal in terms of the kinds of things that I wanted to do. And quite honestly, just, 2023 threw me for a business loop, as it were. So in imagination, I'm sort of looking at the world and saying, okay, now it is time for me to live out loud, live boldly, see the world as I want to see it, and make it change to my desires.
Nice. I like it. And I like the process as well that you go through with this as well. And do you tie, because I know you do, you just mentioned not goal setting, but your intentions. Do your intentions match your word of the year? So do you come up with your word of the year first, then do your intentions, or does the whole thing work together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The first of those, I take the word and I use it as sort of the grounding foundation of then what always ends up, I find anyway, being much more tactical. Your intentions, I want to close X amount of business. I want to, I intend to, create a new product. I intend to get my things in order, whatever those things are. They tend to be sort of task or project or initiative oriented. And so that's why I always find starting there is tough, because what it ends up becoming is kind of a laundry list, right? Yeah. And so by grounding it into the one word, what I find is so helpful is that it networks those things together to a common thing. And so that each can feed on each. And then I sort of edit that down and go, okay, what are the 3 or the 5 most important of those for me? What do I feel like, and one of the ways I do that, by the way, is I say it in the past tense. Like, I intend to grow my business by X, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, I grew my business by X. And I think about how that makes me feel. Yes. And then I think about all of the ways that I could say that, like what would have to happen in order to say that, in order for that statement to be true. And that usually gives me a pit in my stomach, or, or butterflies in my stomach, or it makes me feel icky, or it makes me feel great, or it makes me feel happy or sad. There's some sort of emotion that comes along with it. And so I start prioritizing based on that and saying, what do I really, really want? Right.
And do you let that ickiness feeling guide you, or do you think, well, I'm just going to have to deal with these feelings in order to, this goal that I have, or this intention that I have is important, and therefore, why is it I'm feeling this way, and what do I need to do?
It depends on the ickiness. Yeah, it depends on the ickiness. I mean, in a lot of ways, what I find is that, when we make those intentions or the resolutions or goals or whatever they end up calling them around success, our knee jerk, or, our lizard brain sort of response is consensus success, more money, more clients, more. And what I find is that it's often the real truth underneath that isn't that, right? It's, it's like, and so I end up, when I feel that ickiness, the answer becomes to ask why do I want that? Right. If it makes me, why am I saying that? It makes me feel icky. So why is that what I want? And if you start peeling back all those whys, eventually you get to something like, I want to be more comfortable, or I want to have more choice, or I want to have, it gets to a deeper intention. And that's where I try and stick so that I can focus on the deeper level intention rather than the surface level consensus of what, more business, right? Well, what does more business mean? Why do I want more business? And more business equals more money. Well, why do I want more money? Well, I want more money because I want more choice about what I do. I want more freedom. I want to feel more content. And that is the real thing, right? That's the real idea that you're striving for, not the more.
Yeah, I love that, because that then derives out. I mean, I think I love your word of the year, because I think it's almost like the value or goal that rules all values and goals of what you're going into that year. A really nice sort of touchstone. But I think that process you just talked about, which is why do I feel this way? Why do I want this thing? And dig into that and go, actually, I don't really want that. Right. Or I'm doing it for somebody else, or I'm doing it for narcissistic reasons, or actually, what's really going to be important this year to get done? And is it to look popular and wonderful on LinkedIn or to be successful in any other pursuit? It's not. It's a much deeper thing, isn't it?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. I mean, look, I'm not going to kid anybody. I'm not Buddha sitting up on a hill, right? I'm also thinking about like, hey, my checkbook is not good right now. So, so there are some short-term things. I need to take care of some shit, right? So
I love that grounding. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we wandered off up the path of enlightenment for a moment there, and you brought us right back to, got to pay the fucking bills, man.
That's right. There is some of that, right? But it's not, but to the extent that you can elevate that stuff, I find that it gives you, so one thing that a spiritual mentor of mine once said to me was that it's easier to allow good things to happen in your life rather than to force good things to happen in your life.
Wow.
And that allowing energy means opening up, right? It's an opening energy, right? Where you state the intention of how you want to feel, or what your day looks like, or what what the function of things are, rather than the form of them. And that allows many things to come to your doorstep rather than forcing your way through one sort of form of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said for taking that more. I've actually heard it expressed like this, that become a surfer of life rather than, try and cut through the waves. So you just roll with it and
that's
go
right.
with it. Yeah.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
Great.
right. That's why I hate the whole, get punched in the mouth and get up and get punched again, right? It's like, no, that's not. It's also why I hate the term "no pain, no gain," right? It's. I think those are flawed ways to look at living your life, because what you're suggesting is that you can't live your life without getting punched in the mouth. And of course you're going to get punched in the mouth, but if you open up to that, and I like that metaphor, that surfing rather than sort of fighting the waves. It gives you more flexibility to avoid getting punched in the mouth in the first place. But even if you do get punched in the mouth, well, then what you're doing is not getting up to get punched again. You're figuring out why you got punched in the mouth and then surfing the next wave, right?
Well, also, I mean, if we really want to sort of deep this, is like sometimes those punches are only hurt because you want them to, or because you choose that they hurt, right?
Of course. Exactly right.
So,
that's exactly right.
I think it's excellent. Oh, man. And I know that we need to wrap up, because I've been very lucky to grab a little bit of your time this week, because I know you're exceptionally busy. So I'll, but I could honestly talk to you about this stuff for hours, and I'd look forward to doing so at one point. But a couple of things I wanted to quickly mention. One of the things is we always talk about your website, but we don't talk about what it is that Content Advisory do. So I don't know if you want to just mention for a minute, like what it is that Content Advisory do as we kick off the new year, so that if people are interested in getting in touch, what is it? How can you help people?
Well, that's very kind of you. Yeah, that's very kind. And interestingly, it fits right into our topic here, because we are making a bit of a pivot. Not a pivot. It's sort of it's a new wave. It's a wave that we're surfing. I mean, to be honest. So what we have been doing for a long time, working with clients, is to help them through content strategy, content operations, basically the people, the process, the technology of content in the business, and typically as a marketing and communications function. So helping people select technology, helping people work through team skill sets, charters, standards, guidelines, playbooks of how to make content a more scalable, measurable, and creative part of their marketing strategy. And what we have started to switch over to, and you'll see this reflected on our website in not too short an order, is we've started to say, and this is a too cute way of saying it, but I can't, right now I haven't come up with a better way of saying it, which is content strategy as a service.
Right. Yeah.
Which is content strategy in many organizations is something that everybody knows is important, but quite honestly hasn't the headcount to do it.
Yeah.
And so we've been offering up ourselves as sort of a fractional content strategy team in many ways. So we can help your strategy. We can help you implement that strategy, and we can help you execute that strategy. So it's sort of more of a full service approach to doing content strategy in business.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. I also think that seems to be the way that we're going with marketing, with more fractional roles and sort of things as a service. I think that sounds really exciting. So I look forward to seeing that evolve and us talking about it on the podcast a little bit more. So when people do want to see this website evolve and see your word of the year, where are they going to find that, Robert?
Well, they'll find the word of the year post at Content Marketing Institute, where I continue to have my weekly article. That's of course contentmarketinginstitute.com, and then our website, which will be changing yet again. I know I changed it this year, but it's going to change again, which is contentadvisory.net.
That's splendid. And one of the things I also wanted to promote of yours is your podcast with Joe Polizzi, This Old Marketing. I think the last two episodes, as we record this rather than as I publish it, were absolutely fantastic. You did a predictions show, which was amazing. And then you did this show which was just like a confessional almost of some of the things that you and Joe have gone through. And I thought that was an amazing, very disarming, very honest. And so what episode number was that? Do you remember, Robert?
That was 408. 407 was the prediction episodes, and 408 was the, and 409 will be the one that's live as this goes to air on Saturday.
All right. Yeah. Splendid. All right. So, and when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are you hanging out at the moment?
LinkedIn is my primary channel of choice. I'm loving LinkedIn. It's, it's got its problems, but it's certainly the best of all of them. And then Threads, and I am sadly, because I came on late, well, not late to LinkedIn, but there was already a Robert Rose. So I'm Rob Rose on LinkedIn, and Robert Rose, the more appropriate, on Threads.
Splendid. And not more importantly, and just as importantly for me, will you be in the bar next week?
Oh, of course. I'm sure you'll have fixed up the place, and we'll talk about all kinds of things. Yeah.
I look forward to what I've done with the place next week. All right, mate. I'll see you then. Cheers. Thank you, Robert. So what would your word of the year be? Since chatting to Robert this week, I've been thinking about mine, and it's a great time of the year for that kind of introspection and goal setting. I haven't quite got there yet, but maybe I'll have something before the next episode. If you've got ideas, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me at ian@rockstarcmo.com. So that's a wrap on episode 199 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. Thanks to Jeff and Robert for sharing their insight. You can find links to the three of us, our work, in the show notes on rockstarcmo.com, along with our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes. And thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. I would love to hear from you, so please say hello or drop us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app, or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week is our 200th episode, and as they say, consistency is key. I think we are celebrating with more of the same. Jeff and I will chat about the 5 dysfunctions of marketing teams, and Robert will no doubt drop a fab cocktail for the occasion and a thought in our virtual bar. Until then, have a great week, and I hope you again join us here next week on Rockstar CMO FM.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.